Solipsism, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We will explore in this episode how solipsism, which is the belief that one's own thoughts, emotions, and experiences define reality, is quietly dismantling connection between men and women. This mindset, often amplified on social media, breeds conflict, not communication. In a world where disagreement is seen as disrespect, is objectivity still possible? Let's dive into it. I'm your boy Quattro,
I'm Diesel.
and let's dive into it. So this topic, was a word that I heard you use. We was just talking, and he was like, some people, whatever we was talking about, they have this solipsistic mindset. I was like, ho, wait, rewind. What'd you say? A what? What that is? And he's like, solipsistic. I was like, what in the world does that mean? I never heard that word before. And so when we looked into the definition of it, when I did, and he sent me, Dane sent me the definition of it, and I was like, wow. And then from that point, my mind just started thinking, and like, my mind went on a whole tangent. Like, wow, like this is something that is really plaguing our communities in more than one way than or another. You know what I'm saying?
I would agree. And it's something that is an affliction both men and women suffer from. And it's born out of an inability to grow up, as we'll cover in one of the videos. When
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of quote unquote put it into layman's terms. So, solipsism, I hope I said that right.
I'm
It's a
sure I
it's
fucked it
it's
up.
it's a tough word to say, but
Yeah,
solipsism
yeah.
is definitely an interesting dynamic to deal with, especially if you're, a man or a woman that has to deal with a significant other
Mm-hmm.
who is embracing that type of mindset, or just who has the cognitive skills and abilities to embrace that mindset.
Yeah, because it basically says that a solipsistic mindset is one who can't see outside the confines of their own mind and their own thoughts and own experiences. And so what took me down a rabbit hole when I heard that, it was like, okay, that's the disconnect that we're having in our society when we having these conversations, when you hear these echo chambers on social media.
Exactly.
There's the reason why there's all this back and forth and disagreement because people are not able to see outside of their own experiences and own life, where they think that the way they were raised, the way that they were treated, the way that they think is the only way, and if anybody thinks outside of that, they discredit it or they disregard it, and it's like in some instances not even true in their mind. Like it just doesn't exist. Like they're very is almost like another word for tunnel vision. You
Yeah, that's a
know,
good way of putting it.
when you're looking at something, it's just like you're just stuck on what you see, and then as you know, life is not the way we always perceive it to be. Like
Exactly.
life starts lifing. Like
Real
seriously.
quick.
Life starts life, and then you understand. And I think in one of the videos that we got, the guy was like, one day, you think everything life is roses and butterflies, and then one day you somewhere and somebody sucker punch you, or someone want, calling you out your name, or some type of racial slur or something, then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like what is going on. It's like I wasn't prepared for this. I didn't expect this. I thought that as long as I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing that this would never happen to me. And I think if we understood this term, when we have these conversations in these echo chambers, and when we have these conversations with male and female, or Republican versus Democrat, or whatever two integers that you want to compare or conversate, it's good to understand that your perspective and your experience is not the only one, and it's not necessarily true for everyone that's involved in said conversation. So the best result that you can get out of a conversation is being open-minded and understanding that what someone else might share or experience, may help your perspective be a little better. Not, it doesn't discredit yours, but it helps you understand that there are more options, there are more variations of said topic that you're talking about. And I think if people take that into consideration when we're, because I hear the chaos on these echo chambers and people just saying the same thing over and over and over. And they saying it to the point where they're not even listening to the other person that's coming with another objective point of view. They're not even listening. They just stuck on what they know and what they're thinking and what they want to say. And they do themselves a disservice because, there's more information and more knowledge to be obtained with any given subject.
On that note, let's go ahead and take a look at the video, and then we'll come right back to you.
The most insufferable people are usually solipsists, and a solipsist is basically just someone who never grew out of the main character belief. Like when you're a little kid, everyone believes they are the main character of the movie, right? Like everything exists for you and you think you can actually control things with your mind. You think like if you were to disappear, the whole world would disappear. Like it's way beyond narcissism. Solipsism is like you cannot understand that other things actually exist. And then so it kind of makes you act narcissistically, but it's really just like a total level of utter ignorance about the world out there. And basically, most people grow out of this. The vast majority of people grow out of this. You get older, someone punches you in the face, someone says something to you, whatever it is, you make friends, you fall in love, and you realize that there is a real world out there and there are real people and you are not the main character. And even more than that, that those other people also feel like they are the main character. And so this whole main character feeling is basically just like it's like a flaw in our psychological software that was maybe put there to like help us survive, but is also kind of supposed to be grown out of. Like it's like you're supposed to shed away from it. And yet some people don't ever grow out of that. And that's when you end up with the solipsist.
You said two important words there, uh, objective and subjective. In the salopic mindset, it definitely is 100% subjective in that it can only, as we've been discussing, see the reality as if it doesn't. Everything only exists within their own mind, and like you said, if they cease to exist, then the world will cease to exist.
Hmm.
But that's being real subjective, and they push back when they are hit with some objectivity because, again, it's going against their identity. It's going against what they believe to be true, and it's making them look bad. And that's the last thing the ego wants, is to
Yeah, that's
look
how they
bad.
feel. Yeah, they feel like they're looking bad.
That's the last thing the ego wants,
Hmm.
is to look bad. So when you're dealing with an individual who ultimately just lacks objectivity, at the end
Hmm.
of the day, they don't have any space, quote unquote, in their like I said, psychological software to have any objectivity. It's 100% subjectivity. So it's like you're never going to get through to them, quote unquote,
Mm-mm.
unless you're just very persuasive and know how to be empathetic in regards to understanding, quote unquote, where they're coming from, so you can guide them or nudge them down the path that you want them to go down to.
Yeah, another thing I want to point out, or enlighten our viewers about, is when you're talking to someone and you're engaging in conversations, and sometimes there can be an argument, it can get a little heated. Um, you do know that it's impossible to listen and talk at the same time. You cannot hear what no one is saying if you're talking at the same. If you're talking, you can't hear what they're saying. So I say that to say, because a lot of times you have conversations, right? And it's the other person who may be feeling offended or less than, feeling that their views aren't being, appreciated or accepted. They tend to say, while the person is making their point, they tend to interject and be like, no, 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 that's some bullshit, that's some bullshit, or they keep saying things like that. Understand, when you do that, when you keep interjecting or when a person that you're talking to is interjecting while you're speaking, know that they are not hearing anything you said. So when you do have a person that does that, it's best to stop, let them get out what they need to say, and then continue on with your point. Because the frustration comes, you could be clear in making your point and articulating it, and they are like constantly like, no, you's a bull, you full of shit, you full of shit, no, you a racist, oh no, you a sucker, you a simp, yada yada yada. They just keep saying things, interjecting. You know, even when this even works in church, when a preacher is preaching, and then the congregation like, I know that's right, hallelujah, like you heard that, turn around like, ah, they just missed the next 2 points that the preacher just said. And then if you have a conversation like they talk about the service or the sermon afterward, oh, I didn't even hear him say that. Yeah, because you was sitting there being a cheerleader instead of listening. That's why when you have conferences and panels and things, and when a professor is talking, the auditorium or the classroom is quiet because you need to be listening. It's not time for you to be cheering it on like, yeah, I know that's right. I know that's the fuck right. That's the same thing happened to me. Ain't that something? Remember I was just saying that the other day? You just missed the three next points because you cannot comprehend and talk at the same time. So put that in your perspective when you having these conversations, when we're on TikTok in these echo chambers and listening, like, when you see somebody doing that or showing that, characteristic trait, or that type of behavior, excuse me, understand, like, it's best if you want to get your point out, it's best for you just stop what you're saying, let them. Is it something you want to say, like, something you want to add? Okay, well, can I finish? Cool. Now that I have your undivided attention again, like I was saying, XYZ, boom, boom, boom. And so those are the things, because I find, like, this chaos that's going on. Everyone wants to be right, and everyone can't get outside of their own tunnel vision. Like I said earlier, it's like their solipsistic mindset just really damages and prevents them from learning, acquiring knowledge and different perspectives, and growing ultimately. Because the more you know, the more you grow. Isn't that one of those commercials back when we was kids?
What you said makes me think of three things: culture, communication, and conflict.
Cool.
And to your point, it's in our culture to seek the answers as opposed to, discovery.
Hmm.
Oh, we gotta cut that off. We got it.
Stand by.
So I'll come back from the top of my point. What you said,
You need three C's: culture.
yeah. Let me know when you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right, what what you said makes me think.
It's all good.
What you said makes me think of three things: culture, communication, and conflict.
Hmm.
Culture in regards to your point about us seeking the answers, as opposed to seeking discovery within the situation that we're currently in.
Mm.
When we are quote unquote online in these echo chambers, talking, having these discussions, that's a place where that shows up. Because
Hmm.
as you said, as opposed to us listening and hearing each other out, and adding a bit of objectivity to the discussion, we're stuck in our subjectivity, which doesn't allow us to be able to receive and listen and take things in, and again make new discoveries that we
Hmm.
may not have had, learn things that we didn't know that we didn't know that we didn't know.
Right.
And a lot of people unfortunately aren't willing to get to that point. And then when it comes to communication, obviously language, using the words properly, and realizing that whenever our identity, our ego, it is feeling like it is looking bad, again, it's going to hurl those ad hominems, as they call them. So those
Mm.
personal attacks, it's going to lash out with all the, like, as you said, oh, you're a simp, or et cetera and et cetera. And but again, to your point, it's actually the inverse is also true when it comes to a more quote unquote, positive perspective, like hallelujah, praise God.
Right.
it's the same thing. So understanding how language works and real utilizing it to the best of your ability to again be empathetic, be understanding so that you and the person that you're dealing with can move forward.
Yeah, and y'all both, reach an understanding, and you can come away from that conversation learning something more, adding more knowledge to whatever it is that the subject matter was, or another assessment about the matter you're talking about, or deeper knowledge, and you can share. And if the other person is operating under the same mindset, they'll take away what you brought to the table or the conversation. Y'all both walk away, more fulfilled in that conversation on that topic.
Hmm. And the last one, conflict. I was talking to my mentor recently, and he made a good point how it's just in the American culture to be in conflict, to be combative, because that's what the country was founded on.
Yes,
Technically,
absolutely,
it was treason,
absolutely.
based upon how the laws were written at the time when America
Hmm.
became America.
Hmm.
Understanding that conflict is embedded in our culture, it's in a sense, like you said, it's interwoven in everything that we say, everything that we do, and as the example he used, it's kind of like starting a company, and
Hmm.
the culture that it start with tends to just linger on,
Yeah.
throughout the years. So the same premise applies here when it comes to America, though. So this same culture of conflict, it's still lingering, around in our culture, and here in today, and we see it,
Yeah.
from time to time. So understanding that culture, conflict, and communication, those are three things that we have to be conscious of when it also comes to solipsism,
Yeah.
because that's going to help us be able to engage these individuals, but also to be able to avoid the conflicts that we most likely can overcome by us being quote unquote the bigger
Hmm.
person and moving the conversation forward.
To the point you just made about conflict, this may be slightly off the solipsistic topic, but it still refrains to the country being rooted and grounded in conflict, so there's always going to be conflict. So what I thought about, remember when I was speaking to you early in the week about this whole black fatigue thing, and then you broke it down to me like, them labeling that black fatigue is just another way to keep the conflict going.
Hmm.
We're fatigued by the overall uh ghetto-ness, ratchetness, low vibrating people, no matter what they are, black, white,
Hmm.
red. So why put it as black fatigue? That's just another integer to throw out there to have you this side versus that side.
Hmm.
And so when you just said that just now, that maybe, it brought back up the conversation we had about that
Culture of
whole,
conflict, and then
yes,
individuals who are you know inventing this language,
yes,
they understand this, which is why they're doing what they're doing.
yeah,
This isn't being done by accident. Going back to what I said about persuasion, that's ultimately what I'm getting at now, is we have to be mindful that the persuasion happens through the use of language.
yes,
And the better we understand language, the better we understand words, the more we can start, pointing these things out so they don't become blind spots
mm-hmm,
when we're out in the world interacting, and dealing with people. Mastering this concept of language, conflict resolution, I mean communication, conflict resolution, and then understanding how, again, culture being driven by conversations, how it all comes now together into being that glue that holds groups together, and
mm-hmm,
and 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 now understanding why they quote unquote are doing the things that they're doing, because of this quote unquote conversation that they're have going on repeat about these specific stories that make up their culture.
mm-hmm,
So it's like scripts in a sense. You know
yeah,
what I
very
mean?
much so.
It's another way of looking at culture is a script. So every culture, whether it's Jewish, Indian, Chinese, Japanese, American,
Mm-hmm,
Australian, all the different countries in Africa. They all, and then within, the tribes or the community, like there's a culture within the culture within the culture. And every culture is a script. and that script was written, as I said before, sometime in the distant past. But
Hmm.
again, it still lingered on till today.
Right.
Through thick and thin, it still lingered on, and so that's what I'm learning is how you become quote unquote more valuable and more interesting as an individual is, like I said, opening your mind, being objective to world again the world around you, and being able to now go into these different cultures and engage in these conversations so that you aren't caught up into this mindset of solipsism where you
Right.
think that the world only exists within your reality.
Right. And that's why one of our first topics, it might have been our very first topic when we started the podcast, was language
Hmm.
and how important it is. And that's why we chose that as one of our first topics, because that's the substratum of mostly everything. There's multiple, there's a few things that we always revisit, and there's a continuous theme through everything we say.
Right.
Language, it starts at home.
Hmm.
you know and so I challenge you to go back to some of our earlier episodes if you didn't catch it, where we really broke down language and really spoke about it, and talked about the importance of proper language.
Yeah, man, we got to operate off of better scripts. Someone was talking about healing, and that's a common theme I find in a lot of individuals today.
Mm.
And there really is no quote unquote healing, because it's not like whatever you're going through ceases to exist because you
Right.
healed.
Right.
We have to use better language when it comes to dealing with conflict, because that's what it ultimately boils down to. So
Absolutely.
within this solipsistic mindset, they have to be able to open themselves up so they can get past this solipsistic script that they're just operating off of unknowingly. Like they don't know that they don't know that they don't know that that's why they are how they are, because
Absolutely.
they're operating based on a script that was already here. It was already a part of a network of conversations. Again, culture, it's already here, and they just jumped on the train and have been on ever since. But you have the power to change cultures, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, especially people who embrace the solipsistic mindset. And if you want better results in life, it's going to come down to you embracing and transforming a different set of conversations and quote unquote scripts that you're operating off of.
Do we got another video
Yes, we
on
do.
this topic? Let's see what that's talking about.
Solipsism. Solipsism is the idea that only your own mind can be known for sure to exist. According to this theory, the outside world, other people, objects, and events cannot be definitely proven to exist beyond your own perception. This is because all experiences are subjective, meaning they are understood through your individual mind. So while you may see and interact with the world, solipsism questions if the world actually exists on its own, or if it's all just created by your mind. You have no way to know.
Yeah, so with that video, that's a more in-depth breakdown of the topic, so, solipsism, solipsism, and that's a more extreme one, and like with everything, there's levels to this shit. There's extreme, levels to everything that one can practice, but that one was more so saying, like, in the extreme context of, you don't even a soliptic mind doesn't even believe that another person reality is true at all.
Hmm.
They don't even, like, it can't be technically proven. So theoretically, is it real? Is everything that we see and everybody that we see just a figment of our own imagination? Is that was that's the extreme of it. But when you look at it in layman terms in our everyday practical use, you can see how solipsism plays out in our everyday conversations and the way we carry ourselves, or present ourselves in these echo chambers and stuff on these platforms.
Final words: be open-minded, be
Yes.
objective.
Listen.
100% of your, as my man described it, psychological software doesn't have to be taken up by the program called subjectivity. There are times to be subjective, but there are also times to be objective as well. And if you're lacking the ability to be objective, you're missing out on the ability to really produce the results that you want without the conflict, without the stress, without the drama.
Mm-hmm.
Moving forward, it's in your best interest to take advantage of the ability to be objective also, because now when it comes to your interactions with others, you're going to be able to engage in these conversations without being as combative and in conflict with yourself as you once were, because now you have the ability to now realize that just because someone is sharing their perspective with you, they're not attacking you.
Yeah.
They're not trying to make you look bad.
Yeah, you can have a real conversation, a progressive,
Mm-hmm.
a fundamental conversation where you're not leaving the conversation mad and angry
Right.
and ready to fight or hate the person or not wanting to invite them over for Thanksgiving.
Facts.
But there you have it.
There you
So,
have it.
we always want to introduce new terms. We want to broaden your horizons, make you challenge yourselves, and that's what we do here at the Ripple Effect Podcast. Till the next time, I'm Quattro.
Diesel.
Peace.